Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Disregard. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, the final Tuesday of the first month of the year 2025. What a day. We got to start with Jimmy Butler because I don't know if you know this, but Jimmy Butler has a continued pattern of disregard of team rules. Missing flights, not showing up for practices, being an absolute turd in the clubhouse, not getting along with people. That's not new. What has happened to the Heat and Jimmy Butler, and how badly has this situation deteriorated to the point of no return? There is no way that the Heat can keep Jimmy Butler, and my whole premise has been let him rot at the end of the bench. There's no way he's going to walk away from his paycheck. There's no way that Jimmy Butler will come to his first walkthrough on game day of his first game back after his latest suspension, be told, hey, JB, you're not starting, and him to respond by saying, really? I'll show you. And he walks out of the door. What an idiot. He walked away from money, and there's nothing the union can do. He can't file a grievance. He is intentionally withholding services. The Heat said it in their statement. When you sign a uniform player contract, here's one of the things you have to do. You got to show up to the games. There have been arguments and grievances over off-day practices, over infield practice, over what time to show up. But guess what? At 7:05 or 7:07 or 7:11, which we were never able to sell to 7-Eleven as a sponsorship, or 6:40 or 1:40 or 1:35 or 8 o'clock if you're lucky enough to be on a Sunday night game, you got to be there. So Jimmy Butler walks out. Do you think that the Heat are playing chess and Jimmy Butler's playing checkers? Do you think that Pat Riley got together with Andy, the GM, and Eric Spoelstra, the coach, and they said, listen, we're going to call Mickey right now, but here's our plan. When Jimmy walks through the door, before he gets changed and before he ices any part of his body, we're going to tell him, because it's only fair, that he's not starting. And if we know Jimmy like you know Jimmy, he's going to be absolutely butthurt and he's going to leave. No way. There's no way they could have thought for a minute that he would be so short-sighted and so heavily principled, over-egoed, that he'd walk out the door because he's not starting. Hold on, let me check the contract. Let me look. Nope. $48 million, player option for 52. My God, we're idiots for signing this. I can't put, no, nothing in there about starting. No, he does get a suite on the road, I'm sure. Oh, he certainly has a seat on the plane that no other players will sit in because he likes his row and his locker. Nope, nothing in there about starting. If you don't start a game, you still got to play. You still got to be on the bench. You still got to get dressed. You still got to show. So Jimmy Butler walks out. He's now being fined $532,000 for every game missed, because they're allowed to say he intentionally withheld services, which he did. Meanwhile, what the Heat said is, we're going to suspend him indefinitely. For those of you who may have thought, are we still doing the contest, Coca? If you guess the word of the day, We'll give you some free merch on davidsamsonpodcast.com. I would imagine that there were a score or two of you who said, oh, Samson's going with indefinite, not knowing or thinking that disregard was always going to be my jam once I saw this statement. But the suspension is indefinite. And then they said not to exceed or not, there's a minimum. Boy, that was terrible. 4869. The suspension's indefinite. And then they said not to be fewer than 5 games. What a coincidence. The number of games they have before the February 6th trade deadline, 5. Does that mean that they're about to trade Jimmy Butler? Does that mean there's a team, Phoenix Suns? Does that mean there's a team that is saying to Miami, oh, we want Jimmy. We know that Jimmy, it's a change of scenery situation. We'll get good Jimmy the way the Heat got good Jimmy for a minute or two on the court. And all of a sudden, Ishbia and his merry crew of overpaid bandits will have the missing piece to make them a force in the Western Conference playoffs. The very definition of no chance toilet pants. But if you're a team, do you say to Pat Riley, I may have been offering you some stuff, a couple first rounders that we got from the Jazz, but really, what are you going to do here? You're going to keep suspending him? You've got a miserable player. Here's what the Heat have to do. This is their moment. You've got to let it be known. And I would ask Pat Riley and discuss this with him. I want you making the calls to the teams, not waiting for the incoming calls. And I want you to make it clear to every one of the teams who at any time has shown any modicum of interest in acquiring Jimmy Butler that all of his actions up to and including the most recent suspension have done nothing to change our value of Butler and what we expect back in assets in a trade scenario. And if I'm one of the teams receiving that call, I'm going to hold Pat Riley's feet to the fire. I'm going to say very clearly, I don't believe you. I don't think you have a choice now. What is it that is your plan? Is it the Samson plan, where you're just going to let him rot at the end of the bench? Or are you going to try to do an intervention and try to get Udonis and Bam to sit down with him and say, hey, we need you. We need to be pushing in the same direction. That's what all the players and management say when you've got somebody bad in the clubhouse or on the field. Oh, we need everyone rowing the same way. I think I mixed that metaphor, but you know what I'm saying. It's all a bunch of poppycock, all the things that are said in those circumstances, because you know that it can't be changed. So the Heat suspend Jimmy Butler. They get on the phone to the NBA and the NBA Labor Department, and they go through exactly the wording of how they're going to suspend him once he walks out of practice, that you got to put in conduct detrimental to the team. You have to put in intentionally withholding services. You have to give examples that it's walking out of practice, et cetera, et cetera. And then the NBA approves it because when we wanted to suspend a player or fine a player, we really did want the league to back us. Then the league and their labor department are going to call their counterparts in the players union and say, by the way, here's what's going in Miami. Butler's about to be suspended indefinitely. It'll be a minimum of 5 games. Here's the facts of the case. And the union says to itself, oi, crikeys, we have a problem. We are not going to be supportive of Butler for this suspension. We're still working on a grievance for the last suspension, but please get on the phone to his agent and find out why in God's name he walked out. We can't defend that or support it or win any sort of money for him when it's known by every witness that he actually left. I thought at first that he was suspended for something else, bad behavior or some sort of talking back to Spoelstra or doing conduct detrimental to the team, unbecoming an officer of the court. It didn't occur to me that he would actually walk out. I can only imagine that the union is despondent beyond repair. The league has had it with Butler. The league may get involved with teams who want to acquire Butler as a way to freeze him out because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Meanwhile, Pat Riley is getting more wrinkly by the minute. Mickey Arison is looking at another year that's going to pass without an opportunity to win the finals. amazing how great the Heat have been, by the way, including Jimmy's years, that is their threshold. It's winning the finals. Of course, as a Knicks fan, it's just getting to the finals would be nice. Getting to the conference finals would be nice. The Heat always have higher expectations, and none of it's going to come through. None of it's going to come true. People are saying that Jimmy Butler will never be seen in a Heat uniform again. I'm not saying that. For Jimmy Butler to be traded, it will take some sort of miracle from God to have a team acquire this guy. Hi, my name is David Samson, and I have used an expression in my years, in my time, both on and off the air, about apples and trees. I'm a big apple tree guy. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. People say that when a child does something as a parent would do, or if you work closely with someone and you're really partners with someone, you can sort of use the apple and tree, but that really is generally a family comment. I don't mind being the apple that didn't fall from the tree. I never really understood it when I was growing up because when apples fall off the tree, it would take one hell of a gust of wind to have them fall far from the tree, or an amazing roll down a hill that an apple tree could be perched on in order for an apple to fall far from the tree. The majority of apples do fall close to the tree. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, they are apples and trees in a way that makes me smile. They had a press conference yesterday, and it wasn't even the craziest one, but Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, it drives listeners and views, and we're about to be free agents. So, of course, we're starting with Dallas announcing their new coach, Shoddy. I don't know that I want that as my nickname because other than T's being replaced by D's and having that mean sort of subpar, not sure I love the nickname. But they have a new coach named Shoddy, and I just almost confused Jerry Jones with Jim Jones. Shout out to all my fellow 60-year-olds. Let's do a little sound on tape, if you don't mind, from Jerry Jones in this press conference. You're going to love this.
Now, I get my proverbial ass kicked over needing people in my comfort zone. Without this thing being about me in any way, if you don't think I can't operate out of my comfort zone, you're so wrong. It's unbelievable. This is as big a risk as you could take. As big a risk as you could take. No head coaching experience. You've just heard him reference his osmosis, his family. Anybody in this room that doesn't believe the apple doesn't go far from the tree has missed it someplace down the road, especially if there was an effort to make it that way, and there was an effort.
Let's start with Dak Prescott smiling during that press conference, sitting there in the front row like a lapdog saying, "Thank God you signed me. I'm so happy because I know I stink." And our team does too. So Jerry Jones is talking about a couple things. Let's talk about the first one, the biggest risk, because Shoddy has no head coaching experience. Is anyone else thinking about JG? Am I the only one? Did Jason Garrett have any head coaching experience when he hired him? I must be wrong. Yeah, he must have had it somewhere. Hiring Schottenheimer, the biggest risk. Is that because Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn would be smaller risks because they were more highly regarded? Or is it because Schottenheimer was not rumored or wanted by any team anywhere, though Jerry Jones would make you feel as though he was a very much Ray Cherchez offensive coordinator who, by the way, is choosing to call his own plays, which obviously was discussed with Jerry and Steven, which is a terrible idea. Very hard to do that. Some coaches can, but not if you're Shoddy. So Jerry Jones wants you to believe that he's taking a big risk and that he gets out of his comfort zone. Do you mean the comfort zone that is enveloping him since 1995? Is it the comfort zone of losing? Is it the comfort zone of a GM that doesn't do the job properly? Is it the comfort zone of an owner who knows that no matter what happens, he's going to continue with his plan? Or is it that Jerry Jones is trying to convince you that this coaching hire was done for a reason other than someone in the chair who they can totally control? It's like handing the lineup to the manager if you're the front office. Oh, yeah, that's 30 of them. What kind of control does Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones want over their coach? Do they want a sycophant? A yes man? Someone who will do nothing to embarrass or to question anything that the Jones squared people do? It's hard for me to know. But by what Jones said, and that sound that you heard were not his only comments at the press conference. He actually talked about that he didn't feel he needed to even meet with Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn because Schottenheimer understands the Cowboys' current situation better than anyone, and that he's equal to Glenn and Johnson. Did anyone else think of Jerry Reinsdorf and Chris Getz when he said that? Anybody? Remember when Jerry Reinsdorf promoted Chris Getz to GM and said, oh, we had to do this because I don't want to wait around. I'm an octogenarian. I'm not going to wait around for someone to learn my organization. I want someone who's been here. How did that go for the White Sox? Swimmingly. Sort of how Schottenheimer's going to go as coach of the Cowboys. What exactly will be the latitude that he's given? It's always important when you're the choice of the owner and the GM and the president and CEO, and that you don't have final say over your game plan. You don't have final say over your personnel. You're basically have an excuse for lack of performance. You feel as though that's going to give you more latitude. Hey, I can start off 1-5 next year, and I've got the support of my owner. There is nothing that leads to a breakup between an owner and his friend who becomes a coach faster than making that friend a coach. There is nothing that gets in the way of job security when you are a Cowboys coach faster than a rookie coach who shouldn't have been hired in the first place, who loses in the first season or gets off to a slow start. If you're the Cowboys and you're Jerry, you've got to pray that you get off to a fast start. And think about this. All of the excitement that you all had about Deion Sanders was basically quashed. I told you he wasn't going to be the coach of the Cowboys. I think it was even a wait to see. There was no way that Deion Sanders would walk into a room with Jerry Jones, no matter what Deion said. Oh, it's great to be in a room with Jerry. Oh, I have such great deference toward him and such great feelings. I love you, man. The way the interview goes is, hey, Deion, just so you know how we roll around here, a little different since when you were number 21. We're in charge, and we'll let you know what we want and who the players are going to be and how we want them to play and how many snaps and all that other stuff. What do you think, Deion? Are you in? Deion probably heard the lack of power he was going to have and realized this can't end well for me. Why would I even think about it? Jerry, I'll think about it. Is there any chance you'll give me $13 million like they gave Ben Johnson? Don't be ridiculous. My team isn't worth enough, generating enough cash flow to pay a coach like that. I'm never going to do that. I've got to give a raise to the head of brand marketing. So Jerry Jones steps off the podium, and they bring in Stephen Jones, the CEO. Stephen Jones, who you don't see very often. Stephen Jones, one of the kids who Jerry said, I didn't buy this team for my 3 kids. I bought it for me. That's why I'm still the GM and the owner, because I'm going to run it until I get carried out horizontally. And you thought to yourself, I wonder if there's anything about the kids that may be a question mark. And then we heard this from Stephen Jones yesterday.
We're also evaluating where it didn't go right, in terms of, this drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl. And
this drought, the dreaded air quotes. Is there any way that anyone, forget a 60-year-old Stephen Jones, can anyone get away with the air quotes? If you're not watching this on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, I'm giving you the air quotes, and I'm doing it in a way that comes off as cocky, condescending, diminutive, and cocksure. There's no other way to, I don't think anyone can pull it off. And when you're talking about the fact that you oversee a team that should, by math, go to the conference championship once every 16 years, you get the math? It's been now since 1995. But then that's me manipulating stats. Coca, if you go back, I bet you the Cowboys were in the championship about 2 or 3 times in the early 90s. Let's assume 3 times. Do you agree then that that lets them off the hook for 45 additional years of not making it? That's always the math that I would do in my head while running the Marlins. Hey, we won a World Series in 03. The odds of us winning again, you're only supposed to win once every 30 years. So therefore, we're good for like 29 more years. But we got to get to the World Series because that should be once every 15 years. Oh, thank God I left the Marlins before 15 years was up so the streak could still be alive in my mind. I don't really understand why Stephen Jones was trying to downplay the drought, except that he is upset that everyone's talking about it, that everyone is impugning the ability of the Jones family to run the Cowboys. And then Stephen Jones doubled down on Schottenheimer, saying, I think we've got a lot of great pieces. And you ask why Schotty? Schotty's the perfect combination of keeping some continuity, but also affecting change. That's a really tough needle to thread because continuity is definitely an important concept when you're running a team. You don't want huge amount of turnover. You'd have to be crazy to keep hiring and firing managers through the course of your career. You want to try to find someone, but on the other hand, you don't necessarily want to go the Mike Tomlin route or the Popovich route. And I don't mean anything by that, Pops. I want you to get better. Or the Steve Kerr, or anybody who's been around for too long where they're overseeing sort of the downfall and the voice becomes a little stale. It's totally natural. So are they talking about continuity for Schotty's offensive coordinator and the way he is with the offense and Dak? Is that what he means? And what's the change he's talking about? Is it change because Mike McCarthy didn't properly engage with the offense and the defense, or he didn't properly engage with the front office, or he started questioning things that the GM was doing and the GM just got sick and tired of it and said, I'm not going to take this anymore? It's hard to know what Steven was talking about, except he wants us to know one thing for sure. Is Brian Schottenheimer going to do things differently than Mike McCarthy? Absolutely. I'm convinced of that. When you interview a member of your staff who is a member of the staff of the manager who you just fired, one of the things that you do in the interview is you say, so I know that you're loyal to the guy we just canned, and I know you know what his processes were as manager. Tell me how you're going to be different. And it is amazing how quickly coaches will sell their ex-managers down the river. Well, I got to tell you, we're going to be looking at more discipline. We're going to be looking at making it way looser around here. It depends what the previous manager was. If he's a fiery manager, then the coach is going to say, oh, we're going to have fun. If it's a too fun player-based manager, then the coach would say, oh, we're going to have some real discipline around here. We're going to set things straight. That's what coaches do. I'm going to give you a wait to see, Coca, to end this. It's an official wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. The Dallas Cowboys under 9.1 games won next year. Take the under 9.1. Wait to see. Let's get to the Aaron Glenn press conference because it was awesome. Aaron Glenn was introduced as coach of the Jets. He was fiery. Everyone's trying to be Dan Campbell now. Everyone's trying to invoke the kneecap situation. Forget Cohn and his Duval. That was just awkward. Forget everything that went on in Jacksonville. But Aaron Glenn comes in with the highest of recommendations. Everyone is super excited. He's a Bill Parcells guy. Bill Parcells said maybe the best coach out there. It's coming in. There's a new general manager named Darren Moogie. Give you $1 if you can pick Darren Moogie out of a lineup. Darren and Aaron. It's the Darren and Aaron show. So Aaron Glenn gets up there and he talks about, oh, we're the Jets. We are the Jets. And when you're a Jet all the time. And we're going to be great. We're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Hey, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Oh, it's not about Aaron Rodgers. Oh, no, I really want to know, is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the team? Yeah, I'm not really focused on that. I've texted with him, haven't had a chance to speak to him. We'll see how it goes. And then Woody Johnson. He's no Shad Khan, but Woody is right up there on the Mount Rushmore of owners who have not been able to do anything with their teams. Woody Johnson wants you to believe that he will have nothing to do with whether Aaron Rodgers is a Jet next year. So Aaron Rodgers and you, my loyal, amazing audience of 1,207 regular shows, you are exactly like the owner of the Jets. You can talk about it. You can think about it. You can tweet about it, but you have nothing to do with the final decision. Woody Johnson actually said, I'm not going to voice my opinion. This is the same Woody Johnson that was accused of meddling to the point of night terrors during last season, of stopping trades due to player ratings on Madden, of involving his children, teenage children, in what player moves are going to be made. And now, in order to make up for all of that, he's going to tell you, as it relates to the most important decision of the offseason, are they going to take on all the dead cap money associated with letting Aaron go? Or are they going to bring Aaron back and realize that he is way too old and not good enough, and the juice is so not worth the squeeze that you are squeezing so hard you turn purple and you get one drop like Tom Hanks out of a coconut before he can make a fire on Castaway? Nope, not going to be involved. I'm going to let Aaron and Darren do it, who have been in charge of an organization for a total of 69 minutes. I'm just going to wait to read it on the back page of the New York Post. Have you ever heard more horse hockey than that? I'm just curious. Woody Johnson wanted to make sure that he doubled down on his meddling and his involvement. And he said, you know, that whole thing, that was, quote, a lot of exaggeration, hyperbole. You have to take all that stuff with a grain of salt, he said. Nobody knows how involved I was. I want Aaron Glenn to coach the team. I want the GM to manage the assets and the players. I'll take the owner's position. That's what I'd like to do. That's what you have been doing. You are one of the meddling owners because all of the owners are meddling owners. You can't go to the other extreme and expect to get credibility with the media or your fans. You've got to own it. The decision to hire Aaron and Darren was mine. We are going to work collaboratively to figure out what is best for this organization going forward. And that includes a decision on Aaron Rodgers, as well as all free agents and the makeup of the entire roster. What's wrong with that quote? Would the media run with that and say, oh, look, that's Woody Johnson being inappropriate? No, they would say, God, that sounds like the most rational thing the guy's ever said. Instead, he doubles down. But then he wants you to feel sorry for him. It doesn't really work. I have to look in the mirror and I have to be a better owner, he said. I've tried to be better. I have to have patience. I don't know about that. I have to let them evolve in these positions, which I think they will. I think it'll be quick, but I think they'll evolve. I don't know about you, but I would run through a wall for my owner when he is that full of conviction over his two most recent hires. How about this as a quote? What an opportunity to bring Aaron and Darren in together as a team. As I was interviewing 769 candidates, I realized that the two best people to have in this position were the combination of Aaron and Darren. And you put Aaron, Darren, and me together, and you are going to get success, the kind of success that we've been striving to get since I started that has been elusive. But I believe this is the combination that will work. I can't wait to get going. I think that would have been good. But nope, They continue to try to treat you like a bunch of dolts. And I don't mean adults. All right, let's take a break. Do we have a story about David Rubenstein and the Orioles that you're going to enjoy? And we're going to review a really good movie. All of that after we each take a breath. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is David P. Samson coming at you. Matthew Coca, Sarah, and I give you a show every day at 8 a.m., and you give us 50 minutes of your time, and we appreciate that to our core. Sports Podcast Awards are being announced on this week, I think on Thursday. Find out if we have defended our title as the best baseball podcast. Hopefully we have. Thank you for all of your votes. We appreciate that. Either way, we appreciate being nominated. No, we don't. If we lose, we're going to be despondent. Watched a movie last night that I'm not reviewing today, so I don't know why I just started with that. I got totally distracted. But I was up watching a movie in the middle of the night that I can't wait to review. I think I'll review it tomorrow, actually, Coca. It's nominated for Best Documentary Feature. But I want to review a movie where Kate Winslet did not get nominated for Best Actress. It's a movie called Lee. It's a true story about a fashion model who became a wartime photographer in World War II. Kate Winslet plays this part in a fascinating way because being a woman in World War II and a photographer being in battle, basically, trying to find your way, she plays it with equal part beauty, equal part brain, equal part brawn. Her acting performance is fantastic. The story of the character whose name is Lee is one that I had not heard. There's so many great stories and so many great filmmakers telling the stories. The thing is that I watched this when Kate Winslet was before Oscar nominations was announced. So I watched this, I think, earlier last week. I think the Oscar noms were last Thursday. I thought she'd be nominated for it. I was 100% wrong. So I understand if you're watching Oscar-nominated movies now and you're going to wait to watch Lee, but at some point you should get to it. It's that good. 10 years. That's how long Commissioner Rob Manfred's been the commissioner of Major League Baseball. Wow. A decade. Time flies. He's done a lot of unbelievable things. Think about the pitch clock. Think about the changes that he's overseen. More change than Bud Selig ever oversaw. And he started with the wild card. Not an easy job. One of the hardest parts of being commissioner that we spoke about while he was running, literally while he was running to be commissioner, is how do you deal with owners? There's been tremendous turnover in the ownership ranks in his tenure. And owner v. owner is a concept that you've heard me talk about a lot. And it is one of the biggest things you should be scared about as it relates to a work stoppage at the end of the 2026 season when the current collective bargaining agreement expires. Keeping blocks of owners from forming blocks is a critical part of the commissioner's job. Remember the math. 23-7 is all you need to do anything to ratify a CBA. You got to stop 8 owners from getting together. One of the topics that is being discussed is a salary cap. The Dodgers. How do we stop the runaway train? We thought it was just the Cohn tax. Now it's the Walter tax, the Friedman tax. What do we do? David Rubenstein was in Switzerland and gave an interview. And he talked about several things. And the way it works is that the commissioner has media people led by Pat Courtney, an amazing group of PR people. And they will get in front of the commissioner things that are happening. They'll get in front of Dan Hallam, who runs labor, who will be leading the negotiation for the commissioner and for the owners. And whenever you it used to be literally a clipping service, by the way, where every day you'd get a stack of clips that were printed out for Bud Selig, and all teams would do this. I used to get clips that were, an inch thick every day, just so you're aware of what's going on, and they'd be highlighted by our PR people if I needed to really see something. It's totally changed now with digital. But listen to what David Rubenstein said in an interview.
It would be the case that we would have a salary cap in baseball the way other sports do, and maybe eventually we will, but we don't have that now. So what we have is a luxury tax in effect. So if you go over and higher payroll, with a higher payroll, you have to pay a penalty in effect or something that goes to the other teams. It's not a perfect system. It's better than nothing. But at some point, I suspect we'll probably have something closer to what the NFL and the NBA have, but there's no guarantee of that.
Uh-oh. He said the magic words. At some point, we'll have something like what the NFL and NBA have. That's called the salary cap. That's called the salary floor. Do you know how quickly the commissioner's office heard that interview, got on the phone to David, and said, listen, here's how we're going to play this. We're going to need you to keep it a little quieter because, frankly, you're not doing yourself any favors because you came in trying to be the anti-Angelos, came in when the thought was you're going to be spending a ton of money on your team, and then you did the math and realized, wait a minute, we don't have the revenue to support the type of payroll, and you don't want to write checks because you're smart. Therefore, it would be in your best interest not to create a situation where we could have a problem with our negotiation. We need togetherness as owners. That's the only way to get out of the union what we want to and to get the concessions. They cannot perceive any weakness. Bud Selig went so far as to say, in writing during collective bargaining negotiations, that he forbade owners from talking to each other. We actually got a memo. You may not discuss the collective bargaining negotiation with another owner or with another president without the commissioner's office being present, like it was some sort of sunshine rule. And we got that document, and of course we read it, and then we'd go to owners' meetings and we'd all get into small groups and talk. But the commissioner's office was always paying attention. They would staff owners' meetings with like 20 people, making sure there weren't little cliques forming, little voting blocks forming that could be a problem. I don't think Rob Manfred is going to do what Bud did and put it in writing that owners shouldn't talk. It's not a good look. But I do know that they're going to get involved when they see situations like this happening. In order for MLB to get what the NBA has or what the NFL has, you're not talking about a lockout that will not cost regular season games. The players will not allow it without a major stoppage where there is a breaking point where the players break. So, what's the reality? The reality is that when you are asked questions in the media, like, do you think the luxury tax is good enough or high enough? Do you think the Dodgers are bad for baseball? Do you think there's going to be a salary cap? Do you want a salary cap? You are told what to answer. And the answer that you can give is similar to what David gave. You're allowed to say that you think that Los Angeles has advantages like Japanese players, or that they get Ohtani, or they get a bunch of people in Japan to fly to LA and go to games, all of which is not really what the Dodgers' advantage is, but I digress. You're not allowed to give blanket statements about what you believe to be is in the best interest of the league, or what you predict is going to happen. Because then you're putting us in a position where if we don't get it, then we look weak. And we don't want to look that way. That's the commissioner talking about not wanting to look that way to owners, the negotiators not wanting to look that way to their fellow owners, and owners not wanting to look that way to themselves or the audience of fans. It is such ego in these negotiations that you start managing years in advance, which is where we are now. In order for baseball to actually get a salary cap, they will have to trade to the players something that will be unwilling and unable to get the votes for. There are a group of 8 teams right now who will not agree to a salary floor at the level the players want a salary floor. And from a player standpoint, they will not agree to a salary cap if there's no salary floor. And there's no way to finance the salary floor because the big markets and the big salary teams don't want to give money to the lower salary teams in order for them to raise their salary to hit this negotiated floor, because then you're just giving them more assets to beat you. They have a hard enough time wanting to give revenue sharing to these teams to have them get beaten by the teams that are revenue sharing recipients. It is going to be a fascinating process over these next 2 years. But in terms of sound from owners, the way David gave you that sort of honest sound, that sort of stuff is going to be way more calculated going forward. There will be spokespeople on the owner's side, but it's not going to be him. All right, Coco, will you play some music, please?
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. Thank you so much for getting on my X at David P. Samson. I was just feeling my beard while I was doing that. If you're not watching this and you're listening, thank you for downloading, telling your friends about us. I'm not growing a beard. I just haven't shaved in 2 weeks, or it's a little under 2 weeks. And I'm a little more gray than I expected around the chin area. But overall, it's not bad. I think it gives me a little aura of gravitas. I may keep it for another day or two. It's always a game day decision when you get out of the shower and you're sort of looking, you're like, all right, one more day. Anyway, so you want to talk to Samson? Get into my X and ask me questions. This was a funny one. David, with all your discussion on the football games, you forgot to discuss the Commanders and the warning about the touchdown. Have you heard of this before? I am so thankful that you got that question to me. I think this one may have come on davidsamsonpodcast.com, where you can also ask me questions. We're referring to when the Eagles were on the Commanders' half-yard line. They're lined up to do a tush push, which we covered in great detail yesterday, that we think rules are going to change because we're all sick and tired of that. And God knows McDermott's never going to call it again from 2 yards out on a 2-point conversion. But what the Commanders were doing is they were trying to guess the count. And what they do and what they were taught is the only way to stop the tush push is by going high. Don't go low because we're getting beaten low. Every team's getting beaten low. Instead, go high and try to Superman it right into Jalen Hurts. The problem is, if you get the hard count wrong, ready, and you go on the second, except the snap is on the third, then you're going to be encroachment. You're going to be offsides. So the first time the Commanders do it, it's sort of cute. He falls, he flies over the line, and flags come out because the center's holding the ball. Encroachment, except it's not a 5-yard penalty. When you're that deep, it's half the distance to the goal line. That's a problem. The problem is when you're on the half-yard line and you commit a penalty, half the distance is a quarter of a yard. It makes no difference. Therefore, the defense is incentivized to try to guess the snap count. And the Redskins, 4-8-69, old habits die hard. The Commanders tried it again and then again. And the referee took the microphone and said in almost a Sam Weiss type way, if you know, you know, the Commanders have been warned that if they continue to do this, it will be a personal foul. So they do it again. They don't call a personal foul. They call half the distance. They redo second down, except this time the referee gets on the microphone and says, if they do this again, the referee, and he points to himself by putting his hand over his chest, the referee has the right and will call a touchdown for the offense. And people lost their minds. What does that mean? There's a rule in the NFL that says that the referee has the discretion to award a score to the offensive team or to any team if they feel that there's a circumstance that is so unfair, that is so egregious that the appropriate penalty is a touchdown for the other team. Has it ever happened? No. Do the referees want to do it on a tush push from the quarter-yard line? Not really, because there could be a fumble. There could be the Josh Allen situation where one judge has it touchdown, one has it no, and then it's not a touchdown, and then it's a turnover, and then the Commanders have the ball on the quarter-yard line, and then you're maybe going to get a safety. You don't want to award a touchdown. So I'd never heard that before. And the debate that has happened since is, does that threat change how the defense would try to defend a goal line tush push? And if I'm running a team, it's a very simple answer. No, because I don't think a referee is going to invoke that rule or call that. And I think I have a way better chance of getting the snap count right and flying over and having it not be encroachment, and then having a chance to stop a play that seems unstoppable. So the nature of the rule was meant to stop an action by a club that a club is not going to actually stop doing. Therefore, what can be done other than my suggestion of eliminating the tush push by limiting the number of players you can have in the backfield and then making it just a quarterback sneak? You want to crowd the line, no problem. I don't want a tight end or a running back having any contact with any part of the back of any player. It's a pretty simple rule that is an offensive foul. That is a 5-yard penalty, and it's a loss of down. You make that the rule, that's the end of the tush push. If Jalen Hurts wants to take the snap and dive over, if he wants to go off tackle, if he wants to go off guard, if he wants to go out and do an option, that's fine. Those are all offensive plays. The tush push and the offense that we should have to that is the act of the pushing in the butt or in the numbers of the quarterback or of whoever is getting the snap. From a defense standpoint, when you are coming up with your defensive plan and you're practicing this, it's pretty apparent that what you're practicing is the flyover. So there's going to be a rule change. I did enjoy that. Nothing personal pick of the day. I enjoyed that even more. I told you the Cavs had to get a win over the Pistons. The Pistons, who are a good team this year, you may not be watching them. You may be thinking that they still are terrible. And there's some really bad teams in the NBA this year, but the Pistons are not one of them. The Cavs were favored by 10.5 points, and we won. We are 9-10 right now. Our pick of the day today is going to be Portland +6, odds subject to change on DraftKings, versus the Milwaukee Bucks in Portland. It's interesting what happens when you trade a player to another team and then you face that team. Not the first time that Dame Lillard has faced the Trailblazers, but every time that matchup happens, there is something that we would do as a front office. There's something we wanted to always win a series against a team that had a player we had to trade or did trade because of a breakup or because of finances, or even if it was just a baseball trade. We had special and paid special attention with our manager. By the way, we're playing the Tigers. We'd like to beat them. We love you, Miggy, but we'd like to beat them. We want to stop being embarrassed over that trade. Or we're facing one of our pitchers who we designated for assignment or who we traded. We really want to beat them. The Trailblazers, in their present state, are in a position where they want to beat the Bucks every single time they take the floor. And for Dame Lillard, it really doesn't mean as much. When players come back and face their old team, there's a funny thing that happens with that, in that it's not as huge a deal, but we always make it out to be a big deal in the media because it's good for clicks, good for column inches, good for newspapers being sold. I'm sort of covering the last 3 decades. So I have Portland +6 because it's meaningful to them. I want to talk for a minute just about the slam dunk contest. And I know Coca thinks we do this every year, but I got to tell you, I was blown away. There was an announcement yesterday that Mac McClung will be competing this All-Star weekend in San Francisco. Thank the Lord. He is going to be defending his championship and his back-to-back championship. Mac McClung is going full Kansas City Chiefs. He's trying to do the Pat Riley three-peat. And here's the number of people who give a tinker's rat's pituitary gland. Is it you? Are you excited to see Spurs rookie Stephon Castle? How about the Bulls rookie? How about the Bucks second-year player Andre Jackson? That's the 4-man field. Human highlight film? Nope. Spud? Don't think so. Nate? Not even you. Michael? Don't think so. Nobody. I mean, I guess Mac McClung on the 2-way contract with the Orlando Magic. He's a good one. What is it about the slam dunk contest that they can't get the stars to do it? Is it because they can't come up with anything original? No one wants to fly over Shaq anymore? Sometimes things run their course and you move on to the next. The NBA already moved on to this crazy all-star formula because they don't like the game enough. Haven't they realized the slam dunk contest is nothing near the property it used to be? And the allocation of rights deals toward the slam dunk contest has gone down, not up. And they're in a world where their rights have done nothing but go up. Nobody cares. I think this is the end. I think the slam dunk contest is going the way of Kodak or the dinosaur. Just you wait. Because eventually you look in the mirror and say, it's just business. See you tomorrow. This is nothing personal.